Ruth Calloway called me at 6:40 on a Tuesday morning, and the first thing my ex's mother said to me after 2 years of silence was, "Don't tell Madison you're coming." Not hello. Not how have you been. Just a whisper with a locked door in it. From a 71-year-old woman who used to tape $20 bills inside my birthday cards. Coming where, Ruth? The west fence is down. I need it fixed today. Today, Nathan, a breath. I could hear her moving through the house while she talked, like she couldn't stand still. And park on Delmar. Come up the alley, not the driveway. Ruth, what's going on? Bring your good hammer, she said, and hung up. Here's what you need to know, and I'll keep it short because the fence won't wait. Madison Calloway left me 2 years ago with 2 suitcases and a speech about how we were moving at different velocities. 6 months later, she married a man named Derek Vance, who wore cufflinks to a Labor Day barbecue. I let her go. I let all of them go. That's what you're supposed to do. Except last spring, when my mother died, Madison sent a card. Ruth came to the funeral. She sat in the second row in her navy church coat, and at the graveside she held my arm like we were still something to each other. So when Ruth Calloway says today, you cancel your day. I parked on Delmar and came up the alley, and I saw the fence before I saw her. Walter Calloway built that fence in 1986. 6 feet of cedar, board on board, straight as a hymn. Walter was 4 years gone now, and 3 panels on the west side were down flat in the grass like someone had shot them. I knelt in the wet and looked, and my stomach went cold, because I've repaired storm damage my whole working life, and storms have a signature. Wind pushes fences in toward the yard. Every board here had been pulled out, toward the alley. The nails were bent the wrong way, and along the top rail, spaced neat as stitches, were pale half-moon dents. Crowbar marks. This wasn't weather, I said out loud to nobody. A gray sedan came down the alley doing about 5 miles an hour, windows tinted, no front plate. It didn't stop. It just looked at me the way a car shouldn't be able to look at you, and rolled on. Ruth was at the back door in her cardigan, and she wasn't watching me. She was watching the street. Her kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon oil, same as always, but on the table sat 3 brand-new deadbolts, still in their boxes, next to a hardware store receipt dated yesterday. "Don't start with the fence," Ruth said. "Start with the locks." I installed the first deadbolt while she made me eggs I didn't ask for, and I watched her hands. Steady on the skillet, not steady on the coffee pot. She told me she'd been misplacing time lately, whole gray patches, mostly Sundays, where the afternoon went somewhere without her. She said it lightly, the way you mention a noise in the car engine you're afraid to get checked. "Ruth, why am I really here?" She looked out the window at Walter's broken fence for a long moment. Then she turned around, and there was something in her face I'd never seen there before. Ruth Calloway was scared, and underneath the scared planning, "Fix my fence, Nathan," she said. "And before you leave today, there's someone I want you to meet." The someone drove a dented green Civic, parked it crooked at 900 exactly, and let herself into Ruth's kitchen with her own key. She was maybe 34, scrubs the color of eucalyptus, dark hair yanked into surrender, and a canvas bag that clinked with the business of keeping people alive. She saw me and stopped dead, and her eyes went boots, tape measure, sawdust, stranger. "You're either the handyman the daughter sent," she said, "or you're a problem." "Which?" "He's neither," Ruth said. "Claire, this is Nathan." Nathan Cole. Claire's whole posture changed. Not softer. Exactly. Recalibrated. "The Nathan," she said, in a tone I couldn't read. And Ruth shot her a look I couldn't read either, and I stood there in the middle of a conversation that had clearly been going on for some time without me. Claire Bennett, home health nurse. Tuesdays and Fridays. Hired 8 months back through Ruth's doctor after a fall on the porch steps. She checked Ruth's blood pressure while interrogating me sideways, and I answered straight, and somewhere in there she made a decision, because she reached into the canvas bag and set a battered spiral notebook on the table. "Tell him," Ruth said quietly. Claire opened the notebook, dates down the margin in small, fierce handwriting. Times notes. She'd been logging Ruth's condition every visit for months, not because anyone asked her to, because something didn't add up. "Ruth is sharp," Claire said. "Recall, orientation, humor. She's sharper than half my 40-year-olds. Monday through Saturday." She turned the notebook toward me and tapped a column. "She's only confused on Sundays." I looked. Sunday after Sunday, repeating words. 4 p.m., fog, slept 40 min mid-sentence. Monday am, slurred, no memory of evening. Then Tuesday, every week, the notes went clean again. "What happens on Sundays?" I asked, already knowing. "Pot roast," Ruth said. "My daughter. My daughter's husband." "Right then, I want you to understand the timing of this, because I'll never forget it." Ruth's phone chimed on the counter. She didn't move to get it, so Claire did, and her face flattened out, and she held the screen so we could both see. "Madison, Mom, you left the burner on again last night. Mrs. Patel could smell gas from her porch. This can't keep happening. We love you, but we're worried. I turned that stove off myself at 7:40 last night," Claire said, very evenly. She was in bed by 8:15. "It's in the log. Mrs. Patel is in Scottsdale until June." I read the text twice. The little heart at the end, the word again. "That's not a text," I said. "That's an exhibit." Claire looked at me then, really looked, for the first time. Like I'd passed a test I didn't know I was taking. "A woman came by last week," she said. "Took pictures of the yard. Of the fence. I got a bad feeling, and I've had it ever since." She closed the notebook. "Ask me Friday if I trust you." From the doorway, small and fierce in her cardigan, Ruth said, "He stays." I was cutting cedar in the side yard an hour later when a white Lexus SUV pulled into the driveway Ruth had told me not to use, and a woman got out holding a clipboard and a smile that had been laminated. "Oh, wonderful," she said, clicking toward me on heels that aerated the lawn. "They said the fence would be handled before the shoot. Sandra Pike, Pike Premier Properties." She stuck out a hand. She thought I was hired help, and God forgive me, I let her. "Shoot?" I said, shaking it. "Exterior photos today. Listing goes live Monday morning." She was already framing the house with her phone. "We've got a showing Saturday at 2, I know, fast. But there's off-market interest, and with an as-is estate situation you ride the momentum. Click, click. Between us, these are the cleanest deals. The daughter has power of attorney, the family's motivated. Nobody's emotional about it." "Nobody's emotional about it," I repeated. Exactly. She beamed at the broken fence panels like they were a gift. "Honestly, leave a little of that." Deferred maintenance photographs beautifully for the comp story. She click-clacked around the property for 10 minutes, taking pictures of Walter's house like it was already empty, and drove off with a wave. I turned around, and Ruth was standing at the kitchen window, and her face had gone the color of the sky before hail. She hadn't known. "You understand me?" Her house was going on the market Monday, and the woman who owned it found out from a realtor's small talk. We tore through Walter's roll-top desk and found nothing but paid bills and 40 years of warranty cards. It was Claire, on her way out to her next patient, who thought of the recycling bin, and there it was, under a pizza box. A thick envelope, certified mail, already opened. Madison had come by 2 weeks ago and handled the mail while Ruth napped. I unfolded it on the kitchen table, and the words rearranged my whole understanding of what I'd walked into that morning. Petition for Emergency Guardianship A&D Conservatorship, INRI, Ruth Ann Calloway, an alleged incapacitated adult. Petitioner, Madison Vance. Counsel of Record, Derek J. Vance, Vance & Associates. Hearing, Thursday the 24th, 9 a.m., Department 6, and stapled behind it, an exhibit list. Exhibit A, medical summaries. Exhibit B, financial irregularities. Exhibit C, photographs, property deterioration. Photographs of deterioration. I looked out the window at the fence somebody had pulled apart with a crowbar, and I felt the shape of the whole machine click together in the dark. Ruth read her own name off the petition like it was carved on a stone she wasn't ready for. Her hands shook. Then, and I will love her until I die for this, she set the paper down flat, pressed it smooth with both palms, and lifted her chin. I signed nothing, she said. I remember everything. She looked at me, then at the door Claire had just gone out of, then back at me. So, what do we do? What we did was hold a war council at the kitchen table that evening, 3 coffee cups and a legal pad, while the new deadbolts threw their small brave shadows. Claire came back after her last patient, with a folder and a plan, because it turns out that a woman who has spent 12 years charting for hospitals knows exactly how institutions eat people, and exactly what they choke on. Documentation, she said, writing it at the top of the pad and underlining it twice. They've spent months building a paper story. Texts, photos, episodes. Fine. Paper started this. Paper will end it. She made a list with bullet points like gunshots. An independent geriatric assessment. She knew a Dr. Osai who owed her a favor and could see Ruth Friday at 10. A full pharmacy reconciliation, tomorrow, a written log of every contact, every visit, every text, with dates and times. From this minute, everything that happens in this house gets written down twice. The landline rang. Ruth looked at it like it was a snake on the counter. Then, she straightened her cardigan and answered on speaker. Because Claire pointed at the speaker button and mouthed log it. Ruth. A man's voice, smooth as a signature. You sound tired. I'm not tired, Derek. Sandra mentioned you had help around the property today. The word help came out wearing little quotation marks. We didn't hire anyone. Who's in the house, Ruth? I leaned toward the phone. Nathan Cole. I'm fixing the fence. The pause on the line was the sound of a man rolling a new fact around his mouth like a whine he intended to send back. The ex, Derek said pleasantly. Madison's told me stories. Mr. Cole, here's a fact you can have for free. I do conservatorships for a living. I've filed more than 40. Thursday morning is a formality with a docket number. And interference with a protected elder is the kind of thing that follows a man's name around. You should be somewhere else. I'll be here, I said. Fixing the fence. By Saturday, you'll be gone either way. A small dry sound that was almost a laugh. Fences don't testify. He hung up. Claire finished writing, spoke the time out loud, 7:52 p.m., and dated the page. Ruth's cup was rattling against its saucer, so I took it, and her hand grabbed mine and held on with surprising iron. My own phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I knew the voice of the text anyway. It's Madison. Whatever my mother is paying you in casseroles, this is family business. Don't make Derek notice you. I'm serious, Nathan. I set the phone face down. Ruth, I said, why me? 2 years. You could have called anyone. She looked at me the way she'd looked at me across my mother's grave. Madison sent a card, she said. I sat in the second row. She patted my hand once, hard like driving a nail. She left. You stayed. I can do math. On the porch later, Claire and I watched the street while the dark came down. The gray sedan slid past at its terrible patient 5 miles an hour, and Claire lifted her phone and photographed it without a word, and we stood there shoulder to shoulder, two strangers becoming a garrison. Friday, I said. You're supposed to tell me Friday if you trust me. It's looking possible, said Claire Bennett, and went home. Wednesday morning we counted pills, and Wednesday morning the thing stopped being about a house. Claire laid it out on the kitchen table like an operation. The days of the week organizer Madison had helpfully filled for months. The amber bottles from Hillcrest Pharmacy. A printed refill history Claire had picked up at 7 a.m. She gloved up, actual nitrile gloves, and tipped Sunday's little chamber into a dish. Ruth's blood pressure medication is a small white oval with a score line. What rolled out of the organizer was round, unscored, wrong imprint. And behind it, tucked in the Sunday and Wednesday slots, a second pill Ruth had no prescription for at all. Claire sat very still, the way people do when they're being careful with their own voice. These aren't her pills. Maybe the pharmacy switched generics, I started, because some part of me was still looking for the exit where this wasn't true. She slid the refill printout across. Same manufacturer, same imprint. 8 refills running. The bottles are right. The organizer is wrong. The swap happens in this house. She looked up at me. Count them again. We counted them again. Then, because trash pickup was Thursday, we went through the garbage, and in a folded grocery bag under coffee grounds, we found the flattened blister cards. Silver foil, every pocket punched empty. Stamped across each one, professional sample, not for sale. One card was a sedative, the other was a memory medication. The kind you give to people who have the disease Ruth was about to be accused of having. Claire turned a card over and went quiet in a new way. This branding, she said. The rep bags. Madison brings one to your Sunday dinners, doesn't she, Ruth? The nice canvas one with the logo. Ruth was standing in the doorway. I don't know how long she'd been there. She looked at the little dish of wrong pills and the foil cards from her own trash, and I watched 71 years of a steady life tilt on its axis. I thought I was losing my mind, she said. Barely out loud. All spring. I sat in that chair and made peace with losing my mind. You weren't losing anything, I said. It was being taken. Claire photographed everything with a timestamp on. The pills beside the printout, the blister cards, the organizer, then bagged each item in Ziplocs and labeled them in her fierce small handwriting, while Ruth held the bags open with hands that had stopped shaking and started something colder. That's when the knock came. 2 uniformed officers on the front step, polite as an ambush. Afternoon, ma'am. We got a call requesting a welfare check. Report of an unauthorized mail at this address. Possible isolation of an elderly resident. I felt the trap door under that sentence. This is how it works. You don't have to be guilty. You just have to be reported. And the report becomes a record. And the record becomes Exhibit D. But they hadn't met Ruth Calloway. She planted herself in her own doorway like a fact of geography and invited them to inspect the 3 deadbolts she had purchased, receipt available, and the fence her guest was repairing. And then she delivered the sentence I will be quoting for the rest of my life. He has a key. My daughter has a lawyer. The older officer, Reyes, said the nameplate, took his time. His eyes went over the kitchen table, the legal pad, the labeled bags, the notebook of dates. Cop eyes. He didn't say anything about any of it. At the door, he handed me a card instead of a warning. Saturdays get complicated, Officer Reyes said, to nobody in particular. Call if yours does. That evening, Claire and I ended up on the porch steps again, close enough that her shoulder was a fact I was extremely aware of. The adrenaline had burned down to something quieter and more dangerous. I looked at her, sawdust on my hands, her hair finally losing its war with the elastic, and she looked back, and the air changed pressure. And everyone over the age of 12 knows exactly the 3 seconds I'm describing. "Nathan," she said, not moving away, not moving closer. "When she's safe, ask me then." "That a promise?" "It's a schedule," said Claire, and the porch light caught the very edge of a smile as she went down the steps. Thursday, we turned the house into a witness, a doorbell camera. A weatherproof camera in the oak sighted down the fence line where the crowbar had done its work. A little indoor one on the kitchen shelf, and this was Claire's genius. She filmed Ruth consenting to it. Ruth in her chair, bright-eyed, spine straight. "Say today's date, Ruth." And Ruth said the date, the day of the week. The president, her address, and then, unprompted, "And my daughter's hearing is a week from today," which I also remember, and looked into the lens like it owed her money. If they wanted a record of Ruth Calloway's mind, we'd give them one. Then we drove to St. Anne's and pulled her records, because Claire had been chewing on something since the petition. Last March, Ruth had pneumonia, a bad run, 5 days inpatient. The discharge paperwork was in her files at home, but Claire wanted the certified hospital copy. Admitted March 6th. Discharged March 11th. Back at the kitchen table, Claire set the certified record next to the petition's attachments, next to the photocopied power of attorney with Ruth's shaky signature that Ruth did not remember signing. Notarized March 8th. I actually laughed, one ugly syllable, because the audacity was almost beautiful. You can't sign a power of attorney from a hospital bed across town. You can't, Claire said, but you can type any date you want under a stamp. Her finger moved to the notary block. Kayla R. Munn, Notary Public. 90 seconds on my phone found her. Kayla R. Munn, paralegal. Employer, Vance & Associates. His own office notarized it, Claire said softly. He didn't even go outside his own office. While we were sitting there in the wreckage of that discovery, Ruth's email pinged. She reads it on the tablet Walter bought her, glasses down her nose, and she turned the screen around wearing an expression I can only call Arctic. From Derek, copy to Sandra Pike. Subject line Saturday, logistics. The staging crew would arrive at 100 before the 200 showing. Please have personal items boxed to present the space at its best. Her personal items, boxed, in the house where she'd hung 40 Christmases of stockings. Out front, the gray sedan had stopped bothering to idle past. It was parked now, half a block down under the maple, patient as a lean. I walked straight at it down the middle of Linden Street, and it pulled away from the curb without hurry. And this time, I got the plate, and Claire wrote it in the log. 6:14 p.m. and dated the page. Friday at 10, Dr. Osei folded his hands and asked Ruth Calloway to spell world backwards. And Ruth spelled it backwards, forwards, and then in the French she took in 1973. And by the end of the hour the doctor was laughing, and the whole thing had turned into what capacity actually looks like when nobody's tampering with it. He was a compact, unhurried man, with reading glasses he never read through. And he'd cleared his Friday morning as a favor to Claire, which told me something about what Claire was worth in her world. He ran the full battery: orientation, recall, clock draw, judgment scenarios. Ruth recalled 5 of 5 words at delay, drew a clock face crisp enough to catch a train by. And when he asked what she'd do if she smelled smoke in the house, she said, "Check whether my daughter texted about it first," and Osei glanced at Claire's binder of Sunday logs and did not smile, because he had read it. He wrote us a letter on his letterhead, and I'm going to give you the important sentence, because I memorized it in the parking lot. On examination, Mrs. Calloway demonstrates no cognitive impairment that would compromise her capacity to manage her person or affairs. Her presentation is inconsistent with the episodic confusion described in collateral reports, but is consistent with the resolution of an intermittent sedating exposure. A doctor being careful. A doctor saying, in armor-plated clinical English, she's fine. And the Sundays weren't her. In the truck, my phone showed a voicemail I'd missed. Derek's voice had lost its dinner party finish and found something colder underneath. Mr. Cole, I'm told there was a doctor's appointment this morning. That's unfortunate for you, because as of yesterday there's an open Adult Protective Services inquiry naming a non-relative male exercising undue influence at that address. That's you. And emergency motions exist for exactly this situation. Enjoy Saturday's showing. Bring boxes. The app's investigator came at 3. Miss On, gray blazer, a face that gave away nothing wholesale or retail. She sat at the kitchen table where every battle of that week had been fought and took us apart with quiet questions. Who I was, why I was there, who paid for the locks, who chose the cameras. Ruth answered like a deposition. Claire produced the binder, the Sunday log, the pill photographs, the pharmacy history, Osei's letter, the certified hospital record next to the March 8th notarization. Ms. On read the two dates side by side for a long, long moment. She kept every ounce of her neutrality except one flicker at the corner of her mouth that I choose to remember as the system waking up. She copied what she needed. At the door, she said, "To the middle distance, keep the originals somewhere that isn't this house," and left. And Claire and I looked at each other, because that is not a sentence you say to the people you're investigating. I spent the gold of the afternoon finishing the fence. New posts set in concrete, board on board, cedar bright as a struck match against the weathered runs, all except one panel's width on the west side, which I left open on purpose, framed and waiting. Ruth came out with lemonade and stood in the gap, looking down the alley. "Walter never built a gate," she said. 40 years, beautiful wall, that man. She patted the raw post. "Never one door in it." "I noticed," I said. Said Ruth, and drank her lemonade and let that sit. Madison came alone that night. I heard the car door from the porch and knew it the way you know a knock. She stood on her mother's lawn in the porch light with her arms crossed, 2 years older and dressed like Derek's money, and looked at me like I was a stain that had come back. "You were her favorite mistake," Madison said. "You know that? Even after we ended, it was Nathan fixed the gutter. Nathan would have caught that. And now here you are, fixing things. Somebody pulled her fence apart with a crowbar, Madison. The property's falling apart because she can't manage it. That's the point. That's the whole." She stopped, reassembled the script. "Mom needs care, real care, structured care, and you are a liability with a hammer," and Derek says, "The power of attorney is notarized March 8th, I said. She was at St. Anne's with pneumonia March 6th through the 11th. Certified record. Whose pen was it, Madison? For 1 second, I saw the girl I'd known look out through the woman on the lawn. A flicker, there and gone, like a bulb before it fails. Then she rallied, because the script was all she had. Derek's handled this exact situation before. His aunt, before we met, the estate, the transition, all of it. It went fine. "Eleanor Voss," I said. I didn't know the name yet, I'd learn it in an hour, so what I actually said was, "the aunt." "Where is she now, Madison?" Silence. Crickets. The new deadbolt glinting on her mother's door. "The hearing's Monday now," Madison said finally, backing toward the car, and her voice had a crack in it she'd have denied under oath. "Emergency motion. Granted this afternoon. 9 a.m. Monday instead of Thursday, that's what you did. Coming here. You sped it up. The car door. The headlights. Gone, Monday. We'd lost 3 days between one sentence and the next, and the showing was in 18 hours. Inside, Claire was standing in the kitchen holding her phone against her collarbone with a face like weather. Patrice called back, she said. Nursing school classmate. She works in Riverton. She set the phone down carefully, as if it might go off. 5 years ago, Riverton, a conservatorship, fast track. Attorney of record, Derek J. Vance. The ward was his aunt by marriage, a widow with a paid-off craftsman on the river. Eleanor Voss. She slid her phone across the table. A scanned obituary, a kind, pixelated face under a hat at somebody's wedding. Her house sold in 90 days. She went to a facility called Cedar Hills. She was dead in 11 months. The family that raised questions signed a settlement and a non-disclosure. The kitchen was very quiet. Ruth picked up the phone and looked at Eleanor Voss for a long time, one widow reading another widow's ending like a road sign. There was a woman before Ruth, Claire said. To me, though Ruth heard it, was meant to hear it. He's not improvising. This is a machine, and it's run clean once already. We built the file that night, the three of us, at the table where I'd eaten 100 of Ruth's Sunday dinners back when Sundays were safe. Tabbed, ordered, duplicated. The hospital record against the notarization, Kayla Munn's employment page, the pill photographs and the foil sample cards in their labeled bags, the pharmacy history, the Sunday log, Osei's letter, the exhibit list from Derek's own petition, the plate number of the gray sedan, Eleanor Voss. 2 full copies. One went in my truck, per Miss Ann's benediction. At midnight, Ruth finally let us send her to bed and paused at the hallway with her hand on the switch. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, you two happened because of it. I'm keeping that part, and she turned out the light on us like we were 16. Claire and I stood on the porch in the smell of cut cedar. Down the street, the maple, the empty curb where the sedan liked to sit. Her hand found mine in the dark, or mine found hers. The log does not record which, and held. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. Saturday came up gray and warm, and by 1:15 there was a staging crew carrying somebody else's tasteful gray throw pillows into Ruth Calloway's living room, while Ruth Calloway sat in her own wingback chair in her Sunday best, hands folded, refusing to be staged. By 1:40 Sandra Pike's open house sign was in the lawn, and the first buyers' cars were nosing along Linden Street. By 1:50, a locksmith's van parked in the driveway, rekey today per council, the work order said. And the poor man holding it had no idea what he'd driven into. And at 1:55, Derek Vance arrived in person the way his voice had always promised he would. Charcoal suit, cufflinks, teeth. Kayla Munn came behind him carrying a leather folio like a shield. Madison came last and stood apart, near her mother's roses, pale as the trim. Derek worked the buyers like a gallery opening, original hardwood, motivated timeline, until his eyes found me on the porch, and the smile stayed exactly where it was, while everything behind it changed. He took out his phone without breaking eye contact. Yes, I'd like to report a trespasser. Active apps case at this address, a non-relative male refusing to leave a vulnerable adult's property. We'd like him removed before an open house. Thank you. He put the phone away. You were told, Mr. Cole? I was, I said. Lemonades on the porch rail. The cruiser came fast. They were close, and I'd learn later why. Claire had called Officer Reyes at noon and said one word, Saturday. And Reyes had remembered his own card. He came up the walk reading the whole lawn like a report. The sign, the pillows, the locksmith, the old woman in the wingback through the window, the lawyer arranging his cuffs. Officer, Derek began, stepping in smoothly. Thank you for the response. This is a family matter with a legal frame around it. Whose house is this? Reyes said. My mother-in-law is the owner of record. I hold her power of attorney, so for practical purposes, so it's her house. Reyes looked at the locksmith. Sir, hold off. He looked at Ruth, now standing in her own doorway. Ma'am, do you want your locks changed today? I bought new ones Tuesday, said Ruth. I like them very much. Derek's jaw did a small, expensive thing. Officer, the owner's capacity is precisely the issue before the court on Monday. And this man, then let's look at your paperwork, I said, and open the file on the porch rail, because we had rehearsed this, the order of it, the way you'd stage a fence, posts first. Post 1. The certified hospital record and the power of attorney side by side, the two dates highlighted. She was admitted to St. Anne's on March 6th and discharged on the 11th. Your power of attorney is notarized on the 8th. You can't notarize a signature from a woman in a hospital bed across town. Reyes took the pages. Read them. Read them again. His eyes lifted to the folio. Kayla Munn was now holding the way you hold something that has become suddenly heavy. You Kayla Munn? She looked at Derek. That look was the whole confession. And everyone on that lawn saw it, including the buyers, 3 of whom, I noticed, had stopped pretending not to film. Post 2. Derek's own exhibit list and the petition's photographs of the ruined fence, date stamped in the print footer on the 3rd. Next to them, the Weather Service printout Claire had pulled. The windstorm Madison's texts blamed came through on the night of the 9th. Your evidence that she can't maintain the property, I said, is dated 6 days before the weather you blamed it on. From the doorway, conversationally, Ruth added, he came with a crowbar before he came with a petition. Post 3. The zip-locked pills, the foil card stamped not for sale. The pharmacy history, the Sunday log, Osei's letter with its armor-plated sentence. Reyes turned the sample cards over in his hands, and that was the moment Madison left the roses. She crossed the lawn like a sleepwalker and looked into the bag, at the silver foil, and I watched the last of the script fall out of her hands. Those are mine, she said. Not to us. To Derek. Those are from my trunk. My sample stock. I did the inventory report in April. I shorted. You told me I'd miscounted. Her voice was climbing into a register the whole lawn could hear. You said I miscounted. You were in my car. Derek, what did you put in my mother? Derek Vance did the only thing left in his repertoire. He moved. 2 fast steps to the porch, hand closing around the file, and around Ruth's wrist where she'd rested it on the rail. We're done performing. This is privileged. Fences don't testify, I said, and pointed up into the oak, at the small weatherproof camera drinking in the entire lawn, and then at the doorbell. You're right about that. Cameras do. Reyes came between them without seeming to hurry, and suddenly there was a lot less oxygen available to Derek Vance. Sir, take your hand off her. Now, he did. And in the silence after, a full silence, buyers frozen on the grass, the staging crew holding somebody else's pillows, Madison with her fist against her mouth, Ruth Calloway stepped down onto her lawn, small and straight in her Sunday best, and looked at her daughter and said, I'm not incompetent. I'm inconvenient. Nobody moved. Somewhere down Linden Street a dog barked twice and gave up. Ruth turned to Reyes and added gently, hostess to the last, would you like the folder, officer? We made you a copy. Reyes took it. Mr. Vance, Miss Munn, we're going to have a longer conversation at the station. Now, please. He glanced at the lawn sign, the buyers, the van. Show's over, folks. Sandra Pike pulled her sign out of the grass so fast it left a divot. The locksmith reversed out of the driveway like the house was on fire. And Madison Vance sat down right there on her mother's lawn among the buyers' abandoned brochures, wearing Derek's money, and cried like the girl in the second row photographs neither of us kept. Monday morning, Department 6 took 11 minutes. Judge Whitfield read Dr. Asai's letter, read the certified hospital record next to the March 8th notarization, read Miss On's report, which had in the end been filed about entirely different people than advertised, and looked over her glasses at the petitioner's empty counsel table. Because Derek Vance had a conflict that morning, consisting of a criminal attorney and 2 detectives. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Referral to the state bar. Referral to the district attorney. Forgery. Filing false instruments. And a charge whose clinical name I won't repeat because Ruth was in the room, chin up, hearing what had almost been done to her read into a record at last. Kayla Munn is cooperating. The gray sedan, it turns out, belonged to a property preservation contractor Derek kept on retainer for his estates, and the DA is very interested in what preserving property has meant over the years. In Riverton, a family that once signed a non-disclosure has petitioned a court to reopen the matter of Eleanor Voss. Madison called her mother 9 days later. I wasn't on the call. I only know that Ruth listened for a long time at the kitchen window, and that near the end she said, quiet and final as a door latching, "You can visit. You can't take." She hung up and finished drying the same plate for a while. Some fences you rebuild board by board. Some you just frame the opening and wait. 2 weeks after the hearing, I built the gate. Cedar to match, brass hinges, set into the gap I'd left in the west fence. The first door in Walter Calloway's beautiful wall in 40 years. Ruth supervised from a lawn chair with lemonade, thoroughly enjoying being a foreman. When I hung it and swung it, and it didn't squeak, she nodded like a judge herself. "I didn't call you about the fence," she said. I looked at her. Oh, the fence needed fixing. She waved her glass at the alley. But I could have called a company. I called you because there was someone I wanted you to meet, and she only comes Tuesdays and Fridays. And you, Nathan Cole, were never going to leave your apartment and go meet anybody. She sipped, entirely unrepentant. "Took a felony to get you 2 in one kitchen. I'd apologize, but look how it turned out." Behind me, the latch lifted. Claire came through the new gate, first person ever to use it. Off shift, hair down, holding 2 coffees, and stopped when she saw my face, because Ruth was cackling. "She just told me why she really called," I said. "Oh, I've known for months," said Claire. "You were the only one who thought this was about lumber." She handed me a coffee. Down the alley, the maple, the empty curb, the ordinary blessed street. "She's safe now," Claire said. "She is, so ask me." I asked her. She said yes before I finished the sentence, and Ruth toasted us with lemonade from the lawn chair like she'd built the whole thing herself, and I suppose, board by board, she had. Here's what I know now that I didn't know that Tuesday morning. Walls keep danger out, and my God, sometimes you need them. But the people who love you, the real ones, the ones who show up with logbooks and lemonade and good hammers, they'll spend their whole lives quietly framing an opening in your fence, waiting for you to be brave enough to hang the gate. So let me ask you 2 things, and I want your real answers in the comments. If you had opened that folder on the kitchen table and found the person you once loved signing away her own mother's life, would you have walked back out through that broken fence? Or picked up the hammer and stayed? And has there ever been someone in your life who wasn't blood? A Ruth, a Claire, who showed up for you when your own family didn't? And did you ever tell them what that meant? Write their name down there. Tell the story. Somebody scrolling tonight needs to read it. And if you stayed with me all the way to the gate, subscribe. Around here, we notice the people who stay.